Greetings, everyone. Feel free to say hello in the chat. If you want to say hello in the chat and where you're calling in from, it's always kind of nice to get a sense of the people in the room. I'll introduce our visiting teacher and guest today in one moment, but just want to give a chance for people to land here on this December 27th morning in California, where I am anyways, and the sun is out after numerous days of rain. Um, Nice to see everybody bouncing in from New Zealand, Canada, where else? Paris, beautiful, Austin. Someday I've always wanted to go on a global tour where I don't know, maybe get a bus or something and I drive around and I actually visit everybody. I try to go to a 100 city tour and visit actually everyone in person someday. So I'm very thrilled. This is the last, I think, session in our series, and really happy to welcome Sharon Salzberg to our gathering today. Sharon is a dear friend and longtime meditation practitioner, longtime meditation teacher. She's written numerous books. Her last book, I believe, what is your last book, Sharon?
Finding Your Way, I think, was my last book, and the same year was Real Life.
Real Life Beautiful, which was after Real Love.
Trade, real everything.
Real Everything. So welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much. I'm really fascinated where everyone's signing in from. It's so international. Different time zones. Good evening from Finland. Good afternoon from Massachusetts.
Sharon and I,
I
before we
love
got
it.
on, we were just talking about just not to get into politics. It's not really our purpose here, but just the emerging new paradigms that are coming, our globe is facing, both in the United States, but also internationally. There definitely seems to be a lot of like tectonic shifts, plates moving as we try to figure out what this new chapter of this world might appear. And maybe part of that new chapter is we see ourselves as a global community and we see ourselves as people who need to come together and who need to practice together and be together. And so possibly there's a muscle that we can build which we can do today, which is both about our own personal journey and our own personal awakening and development, but also a collective awakening and development, and that the conditions that we're seeing are kind of calling all of us to step up and step into that. I can't say for sure, but I'd like to think that there's an invitation here that's being offered to us, and that potentially we as humanity can kind of answer to this call. But I'm not going to say more because I want to maybe Sharon, one of the things we've had people do is just maybe say a little bit about just kind of what practice means to you and how maybe
Hmm.
that has changed over the years. And
Oh, it's great. And I love your highlighting community and sort of bringing that forth over and over again. Um, Well, one of the things I have learned to prize more than anything about mindfulness as a quality is how completely inclusive it is. And that wasn't my first impression. It wasn't how I understood things to begin with. Um, there was more of a sense of I've got to get rid of that and I've got to hold on to that, and like any human being might logically have. But of course, it's very different than that. And that has become so paramount for my understanding, that mindfulness, as we say, doesn't take the shape of what it's watching. It's a quality of mind that's open and connected and kind, whatever it is looking at. And that's the real transformation. That's the real revolution in our consciousness. And I'll tell you two stories that exemplify that for me. One is from a writer, Kate Braestrup, who's a chaplain. She's a chaplain in the state of Maine's forestry department. And she was once called to sit and kind of minister to this couple whose then 6 year old child was lost in the woods. And as it turned out, he was fine. He was found some hours later, felt like years, I'm sure. He was found some hours later, but this was the beginning. And so the mom said to her, how great that the forestry department has this service where they sent you to be with me so I don't freak out. And Kate said, "Oh, they sent me to be with you while you freak out." And she called it a ministry of presence, a ministry of healing. And that is what mindfulness reminds me of. We open to some beautiful, wondrous states that we might have been kind of like too distracted to notice, or we felt too guilty to let in. And we open to some really painful, more difficult states. And that's not wrong. That's not a sign that things have gone awry or we're in trouble. That it's the openness, it's the presence that's really the important part. And the other story that came to my mind, one of the ways we sometimes practice mindfulness is just an optional tool is called mental noting, where we actually place a silent label on our predominant experience. So it might look like in, out when we're with the breath, and then thinking, thinking, or joy, joy, sorrow, sorrow, something like that, if the word comes easily. So I was recently at the live stream of a memorial service of someone. And one of the things they did in the memorial service was they played recordings of the deceased himself. And in one of the recordings, he said he was describing his meditation practice. And he said, "My practice is called mental noting. It's a form of mindfulness where you place this label on your predominant experience." And he said, "I try to name it before it names me.
Hmm.
In other words, before it defines me, before it overcomes me." And I thought, I never heard it expressed that way. And I thought, what a great description of what we're doing. We're not trying to annihilate certain things or displace them or deny them, but let's just recognize this is what's happening right now before we are overwhelmed, by it. And I came back to Barry, Mass. I live in a duplex with Joseph Goldstein. I told him the quote. I said, "Hey, this person, described his meditation that way." And Joseph said, "That's great. I'm going to use that." And clearly I'm using it too. So, uh, in that way, our practice can be more relaxed in a way. We're free not to feel, oh, this is wrong. I've got to make more of that happen and less of that. And we're just working with presence. And within that, embedded in that is loving kindness, is really being aware in a loving and accepting way of whatever may be arising.
We're gonna open it up for some questions. Um, I know Sharon can seem very intimidating to,
Really? No one's
but
ever said that about me before.
just so you know, amidst her hard exterior is actually a really soft, loving heart. So feel free to ask any question. I'm teasing, of course. Feel free to ask any question that's on your heart today about practice or anything that's you want to say or share or explore. We're going to just open it up, and you can go under reactions. Let's see, where is that? I think under reactions, there is a place to raise your hand, and I will stop talking for a moment, and we'll see how the group wants to use this next 30 minutes. Okay, Jane Ann, you should be asked to unmute in a second. There you go. Hi.
Hi. Um, Thank you for that wonderful meditation. I wasn't planning to speak, but since nobody else was, I thought I'll try. Um, what comes up for me is overwhelm, overwhelm, feeling like there's no way out for me. I have too many responsibilities. They have to be handled and managed fully. And then I kind of go to the next step and I think, all right, what do I know from my long practice? What would my answer be? Of course, I want to know your answer, but it's okay. It is too much, accept that it's too much for me. Turn it over to the divine universe, the my ancestors, whoever I can call on to say, help me. I can't do this. And realize that it's really a hard thing for me because I have a long history of that habit of thinking I can do it all and not giving up and pushing and driving myself until I have a lot of health issues now that have probably been caused by that very thing of pushing and not knowing when to stop, take a breath, and just accept that I cannot do it.
Well, I don't know if I can have any better response than you've offered yourself. Truly, what came to my mind was some of the work I've done with people we call caregivers in society, people who either in their personal lives or their professional lives in a way are on like the front lines of suffering. And it isn't always obvious that one is a caregiving type. And I've had people, like when I've had advertised programs for caregivers, people call and say, I'm a manager or I'm a mom, can I come or do I qualify? Or even I'm the kind of person who, in my friendships and my personal relationships, I can give much more easily than I can receive. That's really tough for me. Can I come? And the reason I was so drawn to these people is not only because of the nobility of their work and their efforts on behalf really of all of us, but because people with that pattern tend to have a lot of empathy. They really care. What the problem is more like a realistic sense of limits. It's wisdom and it's balance. It's caring for oneself as much as we care for others. And so listening to you, I kept thinking maybe there are more boundaries, potentially that would need to be set. That would be the force of wisdom, not coldness or callousness, but really wisdom to bring more balance, if possible, into this situation. And then I thought of um, this story where I was once teaching. I'm in Barrie right now and living next door to the Insight Meditation Society, which I co founded in 1976. We're moving toward our 50th anniversary. And many years ago, I was there teaching, co teaching with this woman named Susan. And Susan had begun her own meditation practice maybe 20 years before, something 15 years before. And she was now teaching. And she was giving the evening discourse. So I was just sitting there listening. And so what Susan was saying was, in my first retreat, I felt such insane restlessness that I went to see Sharon because I was one of the teachers on that retreat. I went to see Sharon and I asked, has anyone ever died of restlessness doing meditation? And Sharon said, and of course I was really interested, like, what had I said 20 years before? She said, and Sharon said, not from just one moment at a time of it. And I thought that was a good answer. Not from one moment at a time of it. And sometimes overwhelm really increases, aside from the practicality of maybe needing to do less if possible. It increases because we're chunking. It's like, am I going to make it for the next 4 years, for example? Am I going to make it? And it's like, okay, right now, what can I do? And right now, what can I do? And that's sort of taking a tool from formal meditation right into your life.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I have it on my, I put it on my calendar and it comes up every day and it says, right now, this is the way it is.
Mm.
I can do this, you know. Um, my partner, my husband, is struggling with increasing dementia. So, you know, that is a new one piled on. I was already overwhelmed. Um, but like you said, I think we all have that, well, to different degrees, that caregiver. But I'm a nurse midwife, worked in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, Indonesia, saw just the most amazing people working to solve problems that just seem huge. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, with that, I'm lucky. I'm appreciative of that background. I'm appreciative of being an empathetic person, but I really have to work. Well, I don't want to say work on. I work so hard on it on myself. Sometimes I just want to, relax and say things are fine. Things are okay. Don't work so hard.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You know what, Sharon, when you were doing the meditation, I don't know why, but Stephen Levine, our friend who passed, he used to ask, can you keep your heart open in hell? And I don't know why that kept when you're doing the meditation. Like, I think there's the hell that just comes our way sometimes. There's not a lot we can do about it. And then there's the hells that we keep creating because we're we're not tending to ourselves, right? Or we're not
Mm-hmm.
tending to
Mm-hmm.
something. Uh, and I don't know if you could speak a little bit to that because sometimes life just brings what it brings, and our job is to keep our heart open in hell. And sometimes we're adding to that mix in ways that are not helpful to our systems.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, I think there are two aspects that come to my mind. One is exactly, I think, what you're describing and what Stephen said. So I almost said poetically, but emphatically, keep your heart open and help, because what we do, back to mindfulness, is like we're looking at the suffering that comes and admitting it, and one of the things apparently I said quite a lot during the pandemic when I was teaching constantly online. People started making me mugs and sending them to me with things I was saying all the time. So here's one that says, banging your head against the wall is never fun, which apparently is something I said a lot. And another thing I said a lot, and I have a mug, but not in this room, was some things just hurt. It's not
uh,
because we have a bad attitude. It's not because we're thinking poorly. Some things just really hurt.
yeah.
The question is the extra suffering that comes through force of habit, adding a sense of isolation. I'm the only one.
Mhm.
Adding a sense of permanence. This is all I'll ever feel. Adding kind of this identification. This is who I really am. The other things that come and go, they don't count. There's like no light in this darkness. And so we talk in mindfulness about look for the add ons.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not to deny the original pain or somehow, pretend that it was less than it really is, which would be very unfair, very unjust. But we don't need to add to it, and make things even worse. And another aspect of that is taking care of ourselves, and because I was also thinking about the first group of caregivers, I kind of officially caregivers I worked with was through the Garrison Institute. It was domestic violence shelter workers, and it was frontline workers, and then directors and supervisors. And that was like a 4-year program. And one of the things we always did in the different rotations was we asked people, you can do this as a reflection, you can do this as a journaling exercise, but like in one column, let's say you're journaling, write down what you do for a break, to breathe free, for resilience, for some space. What do you do? And I think in 4 years of that program, every single person wrote down, listen to music, well, those all different kinds of music. Sometimes people wrote down, I get out in nature, it's really important, or I do this or I do that. Sometimes people would write down, I drink a lot.
Wow.
And then in the next column, we said, look back at what you just wrote down and write down how you feel about it. So for the
Mm,
people who did say, I drink a lot, they would often say, oh, maybe I need some other tools,
yeah.
that I could use. And then, so I took that exercise to this next group of caregivers I was working with who were military caregivers, like chaplains and medics. And this is a completely true story. Somebody wrote down in that first column, I get out in nature, I kayak, it makes such a tremendous difference. It's so helpful. And then he wrote down, I haven't done it in about 7 years. And you think, well, maybe pick it up again. There's another pattern in people who are caring so much is that you feel it's not right
Yeah.
to do something, that feels a little too indulgent or something. But really, we have to, all of us, look at what resilience is made of.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's made of also of taking in the joy and, being able to have those kinds of experiences and be nourished by them.
And I think maybe to look at the story we might have of ourselves as a caring person,
Mm-hmm.
that then does not allow ourselves to maybe make some boundaries that we
Yeah.
need. We are
Yeah.
caring people, but we're not the identity of a caring person. Sometimes I think for me makes me kind of disconnect from a natural openness or natural kind
Mm-hmm.
of balance. All right, let's see. Mary Beth, uh, you are next. You should see option to unmute. Yes,
Just wanted
did
to say,
it. You made it through.
yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm sure you hear this a lot, Sharon, but you have been such a help in my life to me. And I have, I don't know how many gift boxes I've bought from Sounds True of Room to Breathe CDs. And I'm grateful that they still sell CDs. And I often listen to the workshop like in my car doing alternate side of the street parking. And it makes this task I'm not very fond of become something I really look forward to. And in your books I've, just written down little 3 words here and there from some of the loving kindness of, things, affirmations to say, and share them with, anyone who seems interested, but mostly with myself. And I want to thank you, Soren, for holding this space through the month of December. I know for myself and a lot of people, it's a very hard time of year. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned, I've been 40 years as a caregiver, uh, healer, and now I have a lot of health issues that I'm challenged with. And the biggest message I've been getting is that I need to take care of myself, and that needs to be the first priority. And it's not selfish. It's something that I see now, that if the whole world, if every individual actually did take care of themselves, it would be a very different world. And so that it gives more strength and power and permission to me to give that my best in caring for myself. And a lot of that is like the first woman shared, just admitting that it's hard to breathe, it's hard to walk, it's hard, you know, I walked this morning in 22 degrees to go move my car and stopped and held onto a tree and just said, please help me. Give me some energy to make it 2 more blocks. You know, it's freezing. It's hard to breathe. And I could feel it. I could feel the help. And my sister died the day after Thanksgiving. My brother died at Easter this year. And so holidays just feel so different. And being able to like look around and accept those painful feelings, accept like, you know, turning 70 is a different picture than 21 and not to compare them, you know, that I gave somebody, one of the porters in the building, my daughter and I made these little crayon cards for everybody this year, and that we stick the money in. And the one guy this morning, when I gave it to him, he, you know, said, please, let's hug. And then he said, you know, if you need a smile, come to me. And I thought, how wonderful. This guy is just giving and has no bones about just saying, hey, you need a smile, you come to me. And so I just really appreciate all the work you do and the honesty, and so many of the things that are on your mugs are written on my heart. So thank you. And thank you, Soren. And I would appreciate if there's any way in the notes from the different speakers that have come this month to share other, you know, you ask people like how can people reach you and what's happening. And so like with Joan, this,
Halifax.
yeah, and she said, oh, you probably we're doing this, but then it's hard to find it. And so if there's any way for the speakers, like, so we could see like where we could get more, like, because the year isn't over. So thank you.
An email out with their websites or Instagram handles and things. That's a great idea.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you
all.
so much. Are you in New York?
Yes.
Between alternate side of the street parking
Yes,
and
yes.
doorman, you know, like,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
See, Dorothy should get asked to unmute.
Yes. Okay. Hi, Sharon. It's such a pleasure to meet you. I have been listening to your courses for a while, and it's nice that I'm actually communicating with you in person. I love it. I mean, it's like in person to me.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to say is that I also have been experiencing I don't know, some kind of extreme guilt sometimes, because I was an educator. I was an ESL teacher for 20 years. I retired. And you know, since I've retired, I've been able to actually explore everything that I was ever curious about, which is how I found you and so many other beautiful experiences. It was a little acrimonious as a teacher because, you know, of administration and parent issues. So I just felt like I'm in a time of, I hate to say it, but it's bliss. I hate to say it because I feel sometimes I'm so joyful, and then of course I see the news, and I've been feeling guilty that I know that I'm in New York City, that I could participate as, I don't know, an English teacher for I don't know, asylum seekers or immigrants. And I just feel like I need to take time to myself and, you know, just enjoy it for once in my life. I'm 66 now, and I don't think I've ever had this kind of, you know, tremendous freedom, you know, and I'm okay financially. I got a good retirement package and everything. But I don't know. I sometimes when I'm enjoying washing the dishes and listening to a great course, I'm thinking, I'm too damn happy. That's not right. You know, there's too many people suffering and getting bombed. And it's like, I don't know how to balance that in my heart. You know, it's just a painful thing for me. But at the same time, I'm thinking, maybe I'm blessed and I should be happy like this, because a purpose will let itself known in the future. You know, so that's what I wanted to say.
Well, if you want advice, I'd say, yeah, you should be happy and you are blessed, and the purpose will likely let itself be known in the future. I mean, That's why I said what I said about resilience, and let's look at what it's really made of. And so many of us carry that kind of guilt. You know, I shouldn't feel happy. It's wrong. There's so much suffering. It's like, but you know, I think of the stress dynamic. I think of it as a dynamic. There's the pressure, the situation, the suffering, and then there's the resource with which it's met. And that resource comes from inner strengths and our unhappiness, which is a very expansive quality, our gratitude, which is a very expansive quality, and a sense of community, not feeling so alone. And people often hear that and they think, well, that means you're not going to try to do anything to try to make anything better in a system or for a person or people. And I say, no, you know, but why try to seek change from a place of maximum exhaustion and depletion? Why not build that sense of resource, that wherewithal, so that when you are stepping out and trying to make a difference and ease someone's situation in some way, you're doing it from a place of maximum resource. Like that makes more sense to me. But I understand the guilt, and it's something we can, you know, maybe I need a new mug saying something about that, but I don't know exactly what, but I would continue to try to let go of it.
Thank you, Dorothy. There does seem to be a theme here
Thank
today.
you.
It
Today.
does, and I'm hoping that you'll do a whole series for caregivers now. You know.
Yeah, that would actually be wonderful. And I love your broad definition of caregivers. And more of us have that in some ways, whether we're taking care of parents, taking care of kids, teachers. I see there's a few more hands up, so we'll go to Anne. Thank you so again, Dorothy. And there's a New Yorker energy here too, which is cool.
Yeah.
Unmute myself. Sorry.
You're on. You're
Okay,
live.
here we go. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning. Still for 5 minutes here. We're in Washington. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to you for making the practice so easy to understand, accessible, and applicable. And I've been listening to you and other speakers to where now the mugs and the you know, just the Dharma comes through. And at one time I asked a question and it was like, well, you know, I said, well, it's just how do you do mindfulness, you know? And and the answer was, well, I don't know, but it just comes. And I found that to be true. And so that's just so cool, you know, because the Buddha said, you know, try it and see what you think. And so you have been able to dumb down some of the things that, you know, to make the concepts, like I said, accessible. So I just really wanted to say thank you for that so much. And I don't know how to express it,
Mhm.
but
Thank
more
you so
deeply,
much. It's
but
really
thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
And along the caregiving theme, my mom is 93, and so I'm her primary helper, and Glenn is right there next to me.
I'm the backup.
Yeah, but anyway, it is difficult, and it does take a lot of energy. And so it's really hard to grant yourself that take care of yourself attitude or energy, whatever you want to call it. So for this week, I thought, well, it's the holidays, and I am not going to set my alarm for this, at least for this week, and maybe through the first of the year. But anyway, maybe just that, you know, somebody else can come up with just something small like that, like you said, to build into your routine or your day or whatever. And so anyway, since there's fewer appointments and things like that up until the first, I thought, oh, maybe I can just kind of chill and not put that pressure on myself to get up. And because, you know, you feel like you're still working, you know, I'm not, but anyway, I don't want to, it's 2 more hands. Thank you. Don't want to take up,
you.
but anyway, thank you. I just can't say it enough. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sheila, you'll be asked to unmute.
That work? Yeah, there we are. This is quick. It's just decades ago, before I knew mindfulness and knew the terminology about self-compassion and setting boundaries, I read an article. You always hear this term, someone was a selfless caretaker or caregiver. And it just suddenly hit me. What a terrible word, to be selfless, to have lost yourself. And that was something that made all these concepts with different words really sink in with me. But, now it translates into taking care of yourself and not going so far that you're lost, you're selfless. So I don't know if that's something helpful to other people to have that concept really hit hard and land with them and understand that idea.
That's great. And it also fits in with what is another pattern for many of us, which is perfectionism,
Yes.
which is a real trap. So thank you.
Well, I don't know if a selfish caregiver would do so well too, but there's a middle ground, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's
What's in this for
the
me? Hold
language,
it. You're not, yeah. Let's see, Donna.
Thank you.
I think you're
Sharon,
our closer today, Donna. So we have a lot of expectations for you. You're
well, here it is.
okay. What you
Sharon,
got?
the retreats and teachings I've been on with you, you have often taught through stories of your own experience. Do you remember years ago, I think it was in Seattle, you told a story of looking for an apartment in New York, and you walked in and there was a bad smell. Do you remember this?
No, keep talking.
Okay, and your mind immediately leaped to, oh my God, I'm not going to get an apartment. I will not be able to live in New York. My career will be over. I have never forgotten that story because it's the kind of thing I do often.
Oh, that's so interesting. I don't remember that apartment. I have several apartment stories that are, I thought you were going to tell this other story, which was about a time I was working with a real estate agent and I got very anxious because she didn't call me back. And I had told her, true confessions, what I did, which is teach meditation because it's so odd, she said, tell me about it. And I told her, what we did. And then, then we hung up and then she didn't call me back, with what I needed to know. And so I called her and I was very anxious. And she said to me, Sharon, are you breathing? That's what the story I thought you were going to tell.
Well, the end of the story was there was just something left in the refrigerator. It was nothing.
Okay.
And you had visions within a nanosecond of your life was over. And I thought,
There
yep,
you go.
there you go.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I have a reclaimed
Thank you.
story.
Thank you for all your teachings over the years.
Thank you.
You are one of my precious teachers. I appreciate it very much.
I can't remember the story, Sharon. Maybe you do, and I can't remember who told it, but there's a story about somebody who meets a teacher, and the teacher gives the student a chant, like a Tibetan chant or like a mantra. And the person says the mantra and then comes back like a year later. And the teacher's like, how's it going? It's like, oh, it's amazing. My heart is open. My life is better. I'm more balanced, all these things. And so he's like, so tell me the mantra again. And the man says the mantra and the teacher's like, no, that was the wrong mantra. Like, that's not the right pronunciation to the mantra. It's this other mantra that, you should have been saying, but it was the heart, is the intention of the energy. And I think sometimes the stories, like the specifics of the stories change or the different pieces, but the spirit of the story or the spirit of the lesson kind of
Yeah, that's true.
So any closing thoughts as we finish this time?
I mean, I know that the holiday season can be very difficult for people, and it's especially hard because we're supposed to be of good cheer or having a good time or whatever. But my favorite of these holidays is actually New Year's Eve. And I always say, as a Jew and a Buddhist and an American, I get 3 a year. Because I love, it's not like making resolutions or things like that, but it's just that sense of beginnings, renewal, openings, possibility. dawning and not being seized by the old in some way. So happy New Year, everybody. And I look forward to our being together again.
Wonderful. So we're going to let everybody can unmute themselves. We can go to gallery view, and thank yous and blessings in any and all languages are most welcome. So
Happy Hanukkah.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bless you, Sharon.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Grazie.
New Year.
Auguri a tutti.
Bye.
Thank
Happy
you.